1. I work night shift at a hotel in Dallas. Not the nicest neighborhood, but still a pretty decent hotel after being under new management. Thanks to new management and enforcement of policies, the hotel is really cleaned up of shady people hanging in the parking lot, thank you security, and shady people actually checking in. We use the right to refuse service to anyone, usually guests who attempt to check in with paper IDs. In a state who says reservations made under a different person's name require a reservation credit card to be present. Anyway, today I'm writing about something that happened maybe 10 minutes ago. I was sitting in the back of the front desk having an early lunch, or whatever you call it, during a graveyard shift. I see a girl walk in saying that security got in her face for sitting in her car trying to make a phone call because she ran out of gas. Please keep in mind that from either direction she had come, she had to pass a gas station. Immediately, I knew she was BSing. I let her make the phone call and was mumbling that it went to voicemail. She dialed again and left a message. I doubt that she even called anyone, to be honest. Anyway, during the message, she said something that most definitely caught my attention, and I will explain why I was bothered. She said, "Fucking hotel security got in my face, and I can't be sitting in my car." Now, when she started cursing my place of work, she caught my attention. And the reason it bothered me was because Homegirl was aware she was not a guest, even though our policy does not let people hang in the parking lot for safety reasons, which I informed her. She said that she ran out of gas and the stupid security got up in her face. I asked her to please not insult the staff or property, because since she was not a guest, she was technically trespassing on private property. She tried defending herself by saying that security had no reason to speak to me that way, I was just waiting in my car. I let her know that even though I had the choice to not let her use the phone, I still did, and that I needed her to make the call and leave the premises if she was not getting a room. Which made her mad, and she said she could not go anywhere because she didn't have gas, and that I should give her money so she could leave. I was not having it. This past week has been a mental torture for me. This weekend I had 3 panic attacks where I couldn't remember how to breathe, so I had no time to play games with this crackhead. I told her no one was allowed in the parking lot, and that if she did not leave, I suggested they push the car to the street. As other guests like to use the corporate card, my hotel is independently owned and operated, she said she would be telling corporate. She said I was mean because I told her she could not sleep in her car in the parking lot of the hotel. Security came in and told me that he just saw this woman pull into a spot next to his car, of course, and that he just saw her put her seat back and go to sleep. 2. I was a shift manager, pompous way of saying the only one worker at that shift, but was still a pretty cool job, at a hostel once. One of the owners had another hostel at a city nearby, and we had heard horror stories about this Kevin for a while, from a super cool girl who came from that other hostel sometimes and helped us cover busy shifts from time to time. She told us about this new kid Kevin. He wouldn't make a new fresh bed with fresh sheets when a guest checked out because it was faster for him to just do the bed with the same ones if they seemed clean. He would sweep everything under beds instead of picking up and dump at the trash can. Would take unusually long breaks away to regain energy. Mind you, the job was super easy. Half the shift was a long break. He would check in travelers just by checking their names and handing over the keys. No passport, ID, no area's rules, no showing the room, and worst of all, no entering them into the system. Our friend told us once they needed to have the pool cleaned, so she explained to him how to empty the pool, because she had to manage some paperwork and cook. An hour or 2 later, she goes back to the pool to see what's taking so long. Oh man, the horror. Kevin came up with a brand new plan of his own not to get his hands wet, to technically empty the pool from its old water. He just put a hose into it and opened the valve, hoping the new water would replace the old, and also cleaning the pool. He just sat there for 2 hours while the pool overflowed into the patio and into the street. Word got around that he would be fired pretty soon. We were happy for our friend, since she really did prefer doing it all on her own, rather than having to deal with Kevin. Not that she was going to be alone, there would be a new hire. But the horror does not end there. Fucking Kevin. Our boss couldn't get himself to fire Kevin, but transferred him to our hostel instead. I seriously don't know how Kevin had managed to walk and breathe at the same time during his entire life. Lazy as fuck. Always late and never calling in advance to let us know. If he was taking care of something important like laundry, cleaning or inventory and his shift ended, he would just either stop or half-ass everything and just get ready to leave. Things you are supposed to do early in the shift. And when it came to laundry, most of the time he would not touch it because he could get sick. Very rarely did he clean anything at all. The busiest bathroom had to be cleaned at least once a shift, 3 times per day, or on demand if there were a lot of people staying. He would not change the hand towels, would not recharge the soap, would not mop the floor, would not scrub the floor and walls. He just sprayed chlorine into everything in worrying amounts. You could smell it from down the hall. In his own words, it was cleaner and faster. I don't know how he managed not to intoxicate himself. Of course, he would not leave the desk for anything. Social media took up a lot of his time. We had a paper notebook in which we would write down anything that was pending or unplanned to give a heads up for the next co-worker, i.e. pending room payment, run out of something, something needs fixing, etc., and the occasional amicable joke. And nobody minded taking up the extra chore or two from time to time. This meant on a future shift, the previous co-worker would bump you up an hour of shift or bring something nice to eat or drink as a thank you. But not Kevin. He would leave pages and pages of testaments of justification for him not doing his scheduled chores. Always finding new ways to make it seem like his chores were the next worker's responsibilities in a slightly threatening manner. Of course, being a Kevin, he occasionally forgot his own shift. That meant another co-worker was unable to leave, and had to wait for a few hours before Kevin was located and realized he was supposed to be working. I had to do 2 straight shifts more than once. If you asked him to do something, anything, he would just groan and go do it, badly. How can you manage to fuck up sweeping the floor? Or cleaning the windows? He just moved the dirt around. Every time you came to work your shift and it was after him, you knew you'd have to do your scheduled chores plus half of his, plus whatever he only half-assed his way through. Finally, our bosses had enough and Kevin was fired. They let him know ahead of time, so he suddenly became super nice in a feeble effort to avoid that. Oh yeah, he was a little bitch too. A whiner and would start every sentence with a groan. But worst of all was his constant, "I won't do it because I've never done it" attitude. A complete refusal to learn anything new no matter how easy or small. Maybe that's why he was failing college too. 3. So, I start my shift at midday, and there are 2 rooms booked under hubby's name, with wifey's card as the one on file. Nothing unusual, nothing we don't get all the time. He comes in, needs a key to drop off the dress, but it's before check-in time. I give him the key and tell him to return it afterwards because, technically, I can't let him in yet. All is fine, he's in and out. I vaguely mention that the room hasn't been paid for, and I get a response along the lines of, "Yes, we have. We paid this a year ago. It was one of the first things we did." I let it go because, hey, he'll be back. I can deal with it then. Worth mentioning, the motel I work at changed hands 6 months ago. Different franchise, same overarching company that runs everything. This is relevant. Also relevant is that we have a pub right next door. Our car parks back onto each other. It's great. So about 2 hours later, wifey comes in with about 4 other ladies, and she asks to check in. I tell her I need payment for both rooms and get the same, "We've already paid" response. I'm getting concerned because we clearly don't have payment. I search emails, which is difficult, because our system hasn't been cooperating the last few days. I do, however, find one email between an old manager and wifey from 7 months ago, which only has 1 room confirmation with no payment, and that's it. Now I'm getting increasingly stressed, as are they, because they have places to be. I give them their key and check them in and put the paperwork to the side. I'll ask the manager when she gets back. An hour and a half later, manager gets in. Just as I'm filling her in, hubby walks in with a large folder and his receipt. "See, this is my receipt. We've paid for our rooms. It's super faint, but that's it." I really vaguely glance at it, but he's right. Super faded receipt. I ask to grab the folder from him, and he's just ducking across the road. We've got a bottle O and a few fast food places across the road. I say that's fine, just duck back in and I'll get this all sorted. He leaves. I show the manager the receipt, and I still haven't really looked at it. And immediately she points at the top of it and says, "That's the pub next door." I look and she's totally right. These people have booked an upstairs function room, I'd assume for their reception, and paid that deposit, and just assumed we were them. I groaned and asked her what I should tell him. She just tells me that they need to pay and we have a credit card on file, and that as much as we don't want to ruin their day, we need to get paid. And they're holding out a few $100s from us. Hubby returns and I tell him that the receipt is for the pub and that they have yet to pay us. He's stunned and pissed off. He didn't yell, but I was absolutely terrified that he was going to punch something. My manager is lurking in the doorway the whole time and kind of takes over for me. She tells him that we take a car to hold the room, but we haven't seen any money. He looks like he's about to puke and storms out quite violently. We don't see him again. The last time I saw Wifey, she came in to ask me to fix their aircon. Manager just charged the card anyway as they were refusing to cooperate, and we have absolutely no record whatsoever of any type of payment. I feel bad for them, but the name of our motel and the pub next door are not remotely similar, so I'm not sure how they got it mixed up that bad. I'm going to ask manager for an update on what happens when they check out. 4. Let me tell you a story about how I am supposedly banned from the state of Montana. 1:50 a.m., a drunk guy, drunk brother, came to get a key to room 201, but the room wasn't in his name. As happens all the time, the primary will check into multiple rooms but not put other people's names on the room. They just leave it in their own name. When I told him that I can only give a key to the registered guest, the guy got belligerent and cussed, calling me an a-hole and that this hotel was shit, while storming off up the floors. Hoping that was the end of it, but that wouldn't make this any fun. 2 a.m. Drunk brother came back to the desk, further cussing and making threats. Now you see, we have this huge Milton glass plaque sitting on the counter. In his drunken state, he decided that it would be a good idea to knock this thing off the desk and into my chest. I called the local PD. 2:04 a.m. Local PD on site. 2:38 a.m. Sober brother was called in room 238 and asked to come to the front desk to deal with a situation involving drunk brother. He was advised about everything that was going down. 2:44 a.m. Sober brother came to the front desk, and seeing cops standing there with his drunk brother, he too got belligerent and started to cuss towards me and officer number 1. He stated that I was rude to his daughter, wife, brother, and entire family over the previous 2 days that he was staying here, and that he will make it his life's mission as a gold member who stays at Milton over 200 nights a year to get me fired and have my job. Note, I was off the previous 2 calendar days and no other clerk looks like me. Cop number 1 and 2 escort sober brother up to his rooms to pack up their belongings, while the cops stand by making sure things go smooth. 2:55 a.m. as cop number 3 was talking with sober brother's wife in front of the front desk, she started to call me names which included that I'm a fat fuck, gay, lazy, etc. 3:15 a.m. As drunk brother, sober brother's wife, and a few kids were leaving by the front desk, with a bell cart full of bags, drunk brother started yelling at me, saying that I better not set foot in Montana, and that I was trespassed from the entire state of Montana, because he is big in Montana, etc. 4:03 a.m. Sober brother's wife called and said,
"I'm the lady that you just kicked out of the hotel. Are you going to be a human being for once in your miserable life and let me come back and pick up some belongings that I left in room 238 and 247?
I advised her that she would have to have the local PD stand by. She then said,
"You are a miserable fat fuck who..."
and then I hung up. Sober brother's wife called again. Her comments were not original. I hung up again. 4:11 a.m. Sober brother's wife called and said,
"I just called the local PD, so now go up to the room and get my effing stuff."
It was at this point that I called local PD back to advise him of the update to the incident. 4:13 a.m., Sober Brother's wife came in screaming and making threats while cussing and calling me names. The whole time I was still on the phone with 911, and the operator let me know that the call was clearly being recorded. Sober Brother's wife then picked up a writing pen that was on the front desk and reared back as if to throw it at me. She ended up keeping a hold of the pen while laughing at me when I ducked behind, cursing at me again, suggesting I go eat another cheeseburger. When was the last time you saw your dick, etc.? She then stormed out of the hotel because I wasn't going to give her a key to get the left-behind belongings, while still screaming at me, and got into a white truck, which a minute later peeled out of the parking lot. 4:30 a.m. Local PD sergeant came to respond to the recent 911 call. 4:42 a.m. Sober Brother called saying,
"I'm coming for you, Mr. Limit Hold'em. You better watch your back. I will get you."
I then hung up and informed the local PD, who were still in front of me, what he had just said. 4:51 a.m. While I was talking to the cops, we hear a vehicle screech to a stop outside, and look up to see something thrown at our sliding glass doors. Turns out it was a soda cup filled with soda. The cops ended up running outside and held them at gunpoint while arresting the Sober Brother, who admitted to throwing the cup. Think he covered for wife cause wife was in the passenger seat and had a better angle to throw it. And for drunk brother who decided to try and run from the officer. 5. Note, I'm fairly new to the front desk, but I've been working mostly day shifts, and every time I get put on the night shift, I have the worst luck with guests. And it's just kind of a thing that we've all accepted here by now. This night was pretty chill compared to the others that I've had. The front desk is lit up by the fluorescent lights. Adult contemporary music plays faintly on the speakers. The wind slightly jostles the leaves of the tree in front of me, and the soft hum of refrigerators and drip-drop of the bucket collecting water disturbs the overall calm of the hotel. It has been an overall steady shift. Occasionally, guests will check in and promptly go on to their own way. But then it begins. It hasn't even gotten to 6 o'clock when the horde arrives. A couple walks in and informs me that they have been loyal members of our hotel chain for years, and are distraught that the system cannot be broken for them to give them a discount on this August Sunday. They linger in front of the desk and are torn when the hotel app won't show them any discounts for the hotel. They finally agree to the general price and make the reservation and check in.
Maybe you are right. There actually may not be any discounts today.
Possibly. I cannot agree with them though, so I leave them to their own devices. Immediately after, I get a phone call from room 226, and she decides she doesn't want to wait to talk, and comes downstairs as I check in a few rooms, and give all of my suggestions to go to my favorite casual restaurant for dinner. She leans into the cold slate of the desk, and sighs a sigh that comes deep from her very soul. She begins to rapid-fire her complaints at me, and I stand there and let them rip through me and my new cardigan. She shows me a picture of a window and tells me that it is dirty, to which I immediately apologize and inform her that we do not stand for that and I can move her into a different room if she pleases, where there will be no dirt. She then shows me a picture of the floor, on which I can only guess are peanuts scattered on the rug. She tells me she is not paying the price she is paying for this treatment. I apologize again and offer her the different room. She then informs me that she booked a handicap-accessible room, which I don't doubt, but I have no way of verifying as she booked through the godforsaken company under the name of Expedia. I end up running towels and toiletries up to her as she said there was not an adequate amount for her and the people staying in there. At around 7, a familiar person waltzed his way into the dread-filled lobby. My plastered customer service smile faded into relief as I recognized him as my own blood. He came bearing pineapple fried rice and was able to listen to my concerns for a little bit before he left to go back to the redemption center. Goodbye to human interaction from a source that doesn't use me as an outlet for their discomfort and irritability. Time ticked on once again, and as I thought that things were going smoothly, some new folks came in with requests unbeknown to On Cue. As I soldiered on with the requests, I found my bones growing weary, The night was passing by simultaneously slowly and quickly. The complaints felt never-ending, but at least this night was not like the night when all hell broke loose. No, it would definitely be most difficult to meet the level of that one heart-pounding horrendous night. Just thinking of something like that gives me full body chills. How lovely was the day shift when I had it. Its warm light enveloping me in its arms, telling me that everything will be alright as long as the sun was in the sky. I took those shifts for granted, and now that I have been ripped away from them, I realize what I truly had in the first place. During the day, the only downfall was the amount of phone calls. I at least had supporters physically close to me, rather than cities away. The witching hour had begun. The digital clock struck 8, and the ugly stepsister named Botels.com rang up the front desk. Surprisingly, there was someone who knew less about their own company than I, and my patience was wearing thin. No, I cannot refund our mutual guest card, as it hasn't actually been charged for the upcoming night yet. That's up to the third party.
Can you refund it? The guest wants to cancel their upcoming reservation.
After I told her, the guest came to me and asked to leave one day earlier. She kept insisting that it was on an upcoming reservation and that I personally needed to refund it. I told her I would move the date back and have her refund, but she kept talking in circles, as if she was being forcefully put on this merry-go-round transaction of a conversation. Moments later, the final boss had called the front desk. Still uneasy to understand, she at least had allowed me to put the phone down and attend to my own tasks. The final hour gives a sweet taste of an almost finished shift. Soon freedom will come and all worries will be washed away. I can do this. I've done it before, and I will do it again. This is the time that my face craves to be rid of cosmetics, and to be cleansed of the day. It has gotten to the time that I've started hearing repeated songs on the radio, and the pool has to be closed. Everything has calmed down, and all that there is left to do is think about what is to come tomorrow, and wish for a great night. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Coahw number 25. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Right, I'm probably not going to be around as much this week as usual, like in the Discord server. I won't be around as much there for the next 2 weeks, actually. And in terms of liking and responding to comments, I try to do my best because I'm essentially trying to do a week's work in advance, so that by the time we get to the week of the 16th, right through to the 23rd, I can take that week off. So, prep work this week, recording, well, probably the start of this week, all through next week. And if I get done early, that would also be awesome, give me extra days. If I don't, that's fine. But what that does mean is, because I need to get the stories ahead of time, I'm fairly confident I can actually get 2 weeks worth of videos done. I've done it before. But it might mean that certain days don't have the usual videos you're expecting. Like the True Scary Stories are proving harder to get now. As it sits right now, I've got one more story to record and I don't know if it's going to fit. So I may end up doing, for 1 or 2 of those days, I may end up doing something a little different, just so we have something interesting and cool to go up on the channel on those days. And I can take a rest, because believe me, I need a rest. So if I'm not around, that's why. Not ignoring you, just working super hard to make sure that the channel has content while I'm away for a week. I can hear the neighbourhood doggies barking in the distance. I don't know if they're encouraging me to take time off, or if they're disapproving, because it means they can't bark while I'm recording. Anyway, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.